the name of Almighty Allah, the most merciful. In our earlier session, we have discussed different committees of the board. And as we know that Chapter 9 of Corporate Governance Regulations, which are in vogue in Pakistan at this moment, deals with different committees, and we call them committees of the board. And these committees of the board, in our first session, we have discussed the audit committee. And in our second session, we will discuss another committee, which is known as Human Resource and Remuneration Committee. And so in this session, we will discuss that Regulation 28 of Corporate Governance Regulations. What is the mandate for this HR and Remuneration Committee, how this committee is constituted, and what are the terms of reference for this committee. Let me invite first Ms. Afsha Sarfaraz to read Regulation 28 for the participants. Ms. Menail Amir, you please read.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Ms. Afshan, you are there. Yes, here we
Yes,
go.
it's
Ms.
one of
Afshan Sarfaraz, please. Regulation 28, Human Resource and Remuneration Committee.
Human Resource and Remuneration Committee. There shall be a Human Resource and Remuneration Committee of at least 3 members, comprising a majority of non-executive directors, of whom at least one member shall be an independent director. The chairman of the committee shall be an independent director, and the chief executive officer may be included as a member of the committee. The committee shall meet at least once in a financial year and may meet more often if requested by a member of the board or committee itself, or the chief executive officer and the head of human resource or any other person appointed by the board may act as secretary of the committee.
Thank you
The
very
chief
much,
executive
Ms. Afshan
officer,
Sarfaraz.
if
Thank you very
member
much,
of the committee,
Ms. Afshan. Thank you very much for your reading. And of course, as she has just been through, that the composition of this committee will be comprising of non-executive and executive members, and especially the independent member can be the chairman of this committee, or is required to be the chairman of this committee. And though this HR committee, which is primarily to do the recruitment for the employees and to make an assessment of their professional practices and to give their reports on a biannual or annual basis in terms of their working, in terms of their performance. So that is the primary function of HR committee. And of course, in terms of this committee will also have its secretary. And let's have a look at sub-regulation 4 and 5 and 6. Especially regulation 4 and 5, first of all, we will go through. And afterwards, we will look at the terms of reference of this committee. So in order to further assimilate, let me ask Mr. Kamran Shaukat to share regulation 4 and 5 with the participants.
Chief Executive Officer, if not a member of the committee, head of the human resource, if not the secretary of the committee or any other advisor or person may attend the meeting only by invitation. A member of the committee shall not participate in the proceedings of the committee when an agenda item relating to his performance or overview or renewal of the terms and conditions of his service comes up for consideration.
That's right, Mr. Kamran Shaukat. And this is really interesting that since the main mandate for this committee is for a company, that this committee will ensure that the terms and conditions of service are are offered in a manner which is conducive or beneficial for the company. And this committee, in fact, will also have the liability or responsibility in terms of in order to review the performance of employees, and on the basis of that review their progression or renewal of their contract or enhancement of their remuneration. These will be the different areas in which this committee will look into. And this is very important in order to avoid any conflict of interest, that the person about whom committee is considering his or her performance is not allowed to participate in the committee's meeting formalities, just to avoid that he or she will not be able to influence in terms of his or her performance review. So this is the beauty of this regulation, that this regulation is to avoid conflict of interest and to ensure that the company, especially this HR and remuneration committee, is functioning in a manner which is beneficial for the company. Now, sub-regulation 6 of regulation, which deals with the HR and Remuneration Committee, which is Regulation 28. We will look at sub-regulation 6. The terms of reference of committee shall be determined by the board, which may include the following. Earlier on, we have been through the audit committee, and in that committee, we have discussed their terms of reference. For this HR and Remuneration Committee, subclause 6 actually enumerate different TORs which are relevant to the working of this committee. So let me ask Ms. Tehreem Nadeem to do the reading for the participants.
The terms of reference of committee shall be determined by board, which may include the following: recommendation to the board for consideration and approval a policy framework for determining remuneration of directors, both executive and non-executive directors, and members of senior management. The definition of senior management will be determined by the board, which shall normally include the first layer of management below the chief executive officer level. Number two, undertaking annually a formal process of evaluation of performance of the board as a whole and its committee, either directly or by engaging external independent consultant, and if so appointed, a statement to that effect shall be made in the director's report disclosing their name and qualification of such consultant and major terms of its appointment. Number three, recommending HR management policies to the board. Number four, recommending to the board the selection, evaluation, development, compensation, including retirement benefits of Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Company Secretary, and Head of Internal Audit.
Thank you
Number
very much,
five,
Ms. Tehreem Nadeem. So far, we have, in fact, the terms of reference we have been through. We found that this HR and Remuneration Committee actually is responsible for different areas, which are right from the recruitment till the performance review, and subsequent to that, if there is a requirement for reviewing a contract or vitiating the contract, or for cancellation of contract, if there are any measures required, this HR and Remuneration Committee is responsible for all those areas. Now we will look at TOR, that is number 5, and let me invite another member of our class to do the reading, Mr. Umar Amjad. Please share a TOR number 5 with the classmates.
Consideration and approval on recommendations of Chief Executive Officer on such matters for key management positions who report directly to Chief Executive Officer or Chief Operating Officer. Should I continue?
Please.
And number 6, where human resource and sorry.
Remuneration, yes.
Remuneration consultants are appointed. They shall disclose to the committee their credentials and as to whether they have any other connection with the company.
Absolutely right. So look at this transparent mechanism, and this is why the governance regulations, these regulations are made mandatory for the smooth functioning of the company. That in the given mechanism, conflict of interest is avoided. Number one, and at the same time, if there is any disclosure required, that disclosure is also the part and parcel of the compliance mechanism. And let's say that, I mean, if there is anybody who has some association with the company, one way or the other, he has some valuable quantum of shares in his name, or any of his spouse or any of his sibling is associated with the company, that disclosure is required to be made. This has to be clarified in terms of, you see, giving credentials that one has no association with the company other than one intends to be associated with. So in this regard, we have seen that these regulations primarily, earlier on, we have discussed the audit committee. Here we have discussed the HR and remuneration committee, and we have found that regulations are there to provide a mechanism for the smooth functioning of the company. And paramount consideration is the benefit of the stakeholders, and of course ensuring that the company is working and complying with the regulations, which is a legal requirement. Let me pause here for the question session. Any question, please, regarding HR and remuneration committee? Right. Since these regulations are pretty self-explanatory, so I presume that all the mates are clear with the understanding which is shared in terms of regulation number 28 of corporate governance regulations meant for the listed company, listed companies which are enlisted with Pakistan Stock Exchange, and regulation 28 and the sub regulations we have discussed. So with these words, let's conclude our today's session. Thank you very much for your participation.